Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss Romanticism in English literature. Romanticism was a major literary movement that emphasized emotion, imagination, nature, and individual freedom. It emerged as a reaction against the rationalism and strict literary rules of Neoclassicism. The Romantic movement mainly flourished between 1798 and 1837. The year 1798 is considered the beginning of Romanticism because William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge published their famous poetry collection Lyrical Ballads. This work changed the direction of English poetry and introduced new ideas about poetry and imagination. The Romantic period is usually considered to end around 1837, which marks the beginning of Victorian era. Now, let us understand the historical background of Romanticism. One of the most important influences on Romantic writers was the French Revolution of 1789. The revolution promoted the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and these ideas inspired many Romantic poets. They believed strongly in freedom, human dignity, and social change. Another important influence was the Industrial Revolution. During this time, factories and machines transformed society. However, industrialization also created many social problems, such as pollution, urban crowding, and the loss of connection with nature. Romantic writers reacted against these changes by celebrating nature, rural life, and simplicity. Romanticism was also a reaction against the literary ideals of Neoclassicism, which emphasized reason, order, and strict rules. Romantic writers rejected these rigid principles and instead focused on imagination, emotion, and creativity. Now, let us look at the major characteristics of Romantic literature. The first major feature is emphasis on emotion and imagination. Romantic writers believed that poetry should express deep human feelings. According to William Wordsworth, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. This idea became one of the most famous definitions of poetry in Romantic literature. The second important feature is the love of nature. Romantic poets saw nature not just as physical scenery but as a source of inspiration and spiritual truth. Nature was often portrayed as a teacher that could guide human beings toward wisdom and peace. Another important feature is individualism. Romantic writers believed in the importance of personal experience and individual imagination. The poet's own emotions and inner world became central to literary expression. Romantic poets also showed great interest in the life of common people. Earlier, poetry often focused on kings, heroes, and aristocrats, but Romantic poets believed that the lives of ordinary people were also worthy of poetry. For example, in lyrical ballads, William Wordsworth used simple language and wrote about rural life and common individuals. Another characteristics of romantic literature is the interest in supernatural elements and mystery. This aspect is especially visible in the poetry of S.T. Coleridge. His famous poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner contains supernatural events and mysterious imagery. Coleridge believed that poetry should create a sense of wonder and imagination in the reader. Romantic writers were also fascinated by the medieval past, legends, and folklore. They often preferred traditional stories and myths over modern industrial society. Now, let us discuss the major Romantic poets. Romantic poets are usually divided into two generations. The first generation includes William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. Wordsworth is often called the poet of nature. His poetry celebrates the beauty of nature and its influence on human emotions. Some of his major works include The Prelude, Tintern Abbey, and lyrical ballads. Wordsworth believed that poetry should use simple language and should represent the life and feelings of ordinary people. The second important poet of the first generation is S.T. Coleridge. Coleridge is known for his imaginative and supernatural poetry. His major works include The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Kubla Khan, and Christabel. He introduced the idea of suspension of disbelief, which means that readers temporarily accept supernatural events as believable while reading poetry. Now let us move to the second generation Romantic poets. These include Lord Byron, P.B. Shelley, and John Keats. Lord Byron was known for his rebellious personality and powerful poetry. He created the famous Byronic hero, a character who is passionate, independent, and often rebellious against society. His major works include Don Juan and Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. Another important Romantic poet is P.B. Shelley. Shelley believed strongly in political freedom and social change. His famous poems include Ode to the West Wind, Adonis, and Prometheus Unbound. Shelley's poetry is known for its lyrical beauty, powerful imagination, and revolutionary ideas. The third major poet of the second generation is John Keats. Keats is famous for his rich imagery and celebration of beauty. His well known poems include Ode to a Nightingale, Ode on a Grecian Urn, and To Autumn. Keats believed that beauty and truth are closely connected, which is reflected in his famous line, Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. To conclude, Romanticism was a revolutionary movement that transformed English literature. It emphasized emotion, imagination, nature, and individuality instead of strict rules and rationality. Beginning with the publication of lyrical ballads in 1798, Romantic writers introduced a new poetic vision that celebrated human feelings, creativity, and the beauty of nature world. So this was a brief discussion on Romanticism. If you found this lecture helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more lectures on English literature. Thank you for watching.